Hi, good day, everyone. So I'm Amiza from UNIMAP. I'll be moderator for this session. So first, I would like to invite Mr. Umang Jain, an open source and GNOME contributor. So he will share his journey in building his career in open source software communities. In his talk title, Building Career in Open Source Lessons and Learning. I would like to welcome Mr. Umang Jain. Are you ready now, Mr. Umang? You can start if you want right now, but if you want to wait, that's okay. So we're going to wait for another few minutes, another 4 minutes. Hi, Mr. Umang. If you're ready, you can just start your with your presentation.
Okay, sure. Let's begin. Can somebody give me back on the audio? Am I audible enough?
Again, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Umang, you are audible.
Okay. Thanks. I think the audio is working and the webcam too. Let me know if there is any problem in the public chat. I think you know the deal. At any time, if you have any questions, please write it into the shared notes. I will be answering them at the end of the presentation. So I think we are all set. So hello, welcome to GNOME Asia. I am Umang Jain. I am based from India, and I have a few lessons and learnings that I learned over the time while contributing to GNOME and like building a career in this domain, like open source software development. So I will be sharing like what my own journey, as well as a few like pointers that you or someone else you know who is trying to get into open source can be helped with. So let's begin. So yeah, about me, I am a CS engineer. I'm also a GNOME contributor from a like couple of years now. I got introduced to GNOME through GSOC, and I, in general, cares a lot about open source philosophies and principles, and try to align my career in that direction. Well, I am professionally working in open source software development since 2 years. I think this is my third year now. And in a previous career, a very short career, I was a salesman, but I failed miserably there. So that's something you should know about, uh, because it connects somewhere into the journey. So my journey from university, from the second, like year two, I was offered an internship in a company, but my college administration didn't approve of it. Like I had to leave the city and I will be gone away for a while now. So like they did put some blockers in between, and I wasn't able to attend that internship, and I was pretty down at that point because I really wanted to do that and like learn more about like how real software development works. So what happens, it pushed me to look for alternatives. So what are the alternatives that you know I can learn about the real open source development? Simultaneously, I can do my university and keep my university admin happy. So that led me to like introduction of open source, and finally I came across Google Summer of Code. So Google Summer of Code, if you don't know, is an internship program which you work on an open source project for a limited, I think 3 months, but they have a whole program around it, and it's very good to get into it. It's a paid internship kind of thing, which you do remotely, and simultaneously you are engaged with the open source community and things like that. Yeah, so I tried to get into Google Summer of Code. I remember I was going through some organizations, and I selected some organizations which were not very aligned with my interest, but I just at that point Google Summer of Code was was the aim, right? What was the goal to get into it, and not actually the farther more long-term goal of getting into open source. So invariably I failed in the first attempt, but it did teach me a lot of things. Things like basics, like how to get into open source, working with Git, how to build things, where to get help from, how to interact with community, how to interact with maintainers, how to write bug reports, how to write commit logs. So all these things were essentially done into the first year. So what happened is another year, I was in the third year, I applied again for, I think, GNOME and few other organizations. But I really liked the connect with GNOME because it had a very newcomers friendly community. I got all the support on IRC, on mailing list, patch reviews, whatever it was. I got a lot of high quality support. So in a way, I started growing into GNOME. My contributions increased, my level, like quality of contributions increased, and my frequency of contribution obviously increased. So in a way, like GSOC was a stepping stone for me to get into GNOME. And luckily enough, I got an offer from Endless OS, which is a Linux distro. It's a very innovative Linux distro that uses a lot of GNOME engineering. And if you have some experience in GNOME, it's you get to understand the distro at a much faster rate. So that was my first job out of university. Currently, there was a change of paths earlier this year, and I left Endless OS. Simultaneous change of paths, and now I'm currently working as one of the core developers for Libcamera. So if you know a bit about camera stacks, Libcamera is a evolving open source project to provide an entire camera stack. So my next talk is about that. So if you're interested, stay around. So in a word, what is this talk about? So simply putting it that way, I have seen both sides of the coin, right? I was someone who came into community. I talked to a lot of people. I attended conference. And I just observed them, like what they are doing. And how they are getting a financial support for doing this work, because I love the work. I love the community, and it because it just helped me grow. I was learning new things every day. My like quality of content. First, I was just doing documentation or stuff like that, simple patches, one-liner patches, and then slowly I went into fixing more bugs. Then I started providing support on IRC, and then my contribution increased to like feature level. Then becoming a module owner or like a part maintainer. Like if you have written a feature, you own this part of the product type. So in a way, it was getting the quality of contribution increased over a period of time. So what happened at some point, I started thinking, okay, what do I need to do to keep this going? Because I'm out of university, I don't want to go into like work for typical companies. I just want to do this work. And is there any way where I can get a full-time role or some financial support to continue it? So I have been on that side, and after building the foundation of my own career, I get a lot of people at conferences, in emails, where they are stuck at the same path that I was. So I have interacted a lot with them, trying to help them, trying to guide them what they can do. So, and some I have some pointers where there are like frequently asked questions where people are not able to focus on a particular aspect, or they are taking something for granted, things like that. So I want to like demyth all these things. So if I simply put, what is this talk about? This talk is all about navigation. Like how do you navigate inside open source community, and again navigate your career in that direction. So this is I don't know how much people are into investing and stuff, but this I really believe this saying by Jim Cramer, that the hardest part about investing is holding on through difficult periods and taking short-term pains so that you can have long-term gains. So investing in the sense like you have to be very disciplined, to start making progress, because there is no one will handhold you, no one will give you a concrete set of steps, or even no one will give you like spoon-fed things to you. So you are alone in your room on a desk, and you have to start searching about things. You have to get in line what you want to do. You have to get your discipline right. You have to go out there and get support if you're stuck on something. So these are the hard parts, and there will be a lot of times where you are stuck on. Like I remember when I was building for the first time using GHBuild, and it had WebKit, and WebKit took 4 hours to build. It was a very painful time, because again and again I was building masters, and masters had a lot of issues there, and I wanted to fix them, but I didn't have the right knowledge of all the domains. Neither do I have right now, but I have some idea like how to go around it. So those are the hard parts that you will face, and it's very, very depressing, and you are alone in your room. Again, there is no support, like no physical support. All you do is just look at your terminal and IRC and try to figure out what is happening. So it takes a lot of courage to hold on to that. But yeah, it's the pain that you have to get it. And like over the time, so this can go around from like months to years or whatnot. Even there are some difficult times where I'm not able to move forward, but at this point of time I have a lot of experience like how to go around it. Not technical experience, I'm not talking about technical experience, but especially like how would I go around it and try to get this moving. So those type of things. So you need to invest a lot, that's for sure. There is no substitute for hard work here. So yeah, I talked about like Google Summer of Code gave me a good footing into GNOME, and I started contributing it. The good thing about Google Summer of Code is like there is a goal. you have to complete your project at the end of the deadline. So you are already, in a accelerated mode, rather than, just doing, building, and fixing bugs for fun or like a side project. So in order to successfully complete GSOC, that put me into accelerated mode, and I was learning things, I think, at a faster rate, rather than I would have learned about just reading about it, or just not having a goal. So what was the motivation that like hooked me to GNOME, and till today? So taking control of your system euphoria, it's an amazing feeling when you can have something, when like you are the owner of your system, like this desktop, I can mold it in any way I want, provided I have like the technical experience, or even if I get support from the community. So that's a euphoria, and it gives a sense of ownership. So you want to go and dig into it. For example, you are doing applications. So what happens is, after you write applications, okay, this is the application layer, and then you want to understand what goes behind the application. Then you start looking into libraries. Okay, so you have got understand of the library, and then you want to go a deep level. So you will move probably from user space to kernel space. Then you will start, tangling with the kernel. So broad at a broader point of view, you are actually taking and understanding the ownership of a system. And second motivation was this Karen Sandler's life story. So I recommend you check it out, because this was like someone who is for whom like open source has been a way out of their fight. So I recommend to check out this story. She was a former GNOME executive director, so she's a kind of a famous person in these circles. Yeah, growth too. So I was at a point where I had completed GSOC, and I was still in university. Then these like growth part two. So the question here is, what do I do? What do I do to make this financially viable, to make it into a job or a full-time role, so that I can start, doing it professionally? So these are three things. These are the three questions that I had in mind, right? Reading between the lines. Okay, does this mean is, like, look at the broader picture. What is happening? What are people doing? Why they are contributing? And more importantly, like, are they passionate about the work they do? Because you are. Because as I said, it was a very obvious question, because it hooked me onto my system. That I want this work to continue, and will anybody be interested to support me? So these are the questions that start rising in your head when you are at that stage. So I call it the growth part two, because now you are looking at a much more longer term outside your university, getting like a full-time role, etc. And this is a very good blog by Christian Hogarth that I recommend you to read. Developing skills for GNOME. He has like laid out what are the roles, what the role demands, and like how to go about it. Yeah, so I talk like being a contributor. Being a contributor is always help, because you are learning about a lot of things, a lot of details, as you know, that will help you in your full-time role, and you are actually operating at a production level, shipping code at the production level, not just some toy programs that your university exercises might have tried to do, or which you write once and throw it away. No, this is not that. Being a contributor helps to get that experience at a much a faster pace than your peers, because you are still in your university, and you have a way to write production level code. You have a way to learn about it and then go about it. So it's a very good opportunity if somebody sees like value proposition of it. So yeah, being a contributor is always help, but certain things are demanded from you, like to start thinking and taking action into like getting converted this into a full-time role. So there is some orientation that you need to do, readjust the compass so that you can steer your ship in that direction. So yeah, the first of things is working on visibility. So people will not hire you if you are not visible. Like people should know about you or at least have an idea. So what this means is like you are giving talks, you are blogging about your work, you are tweeting, you are taking initiatives, you are proposing features, you are attending conferences, and you are participating in like the discussion, Q&A, asking very smart questions or even just regular questions and then blogging about it so that more people can know about it. So all these things works as a visibility. Like for an interviewer, like I have seen a lot of landscape about interviewing. So uh, the majority of the open source employees I have seen are remote employees. So in order to get a remote job, you need to work on your visibility, and it is very important because no one is looking like face to face, or the interviewer has not met you face to face and he doesn't know much about you. So what they will do is they will go and search about you, and if there is no content about you, it kind of is in a negative zone. So you need to work on your visibility, you need to know people, and like all these things which I have mentioned. Start small but scale it as you go on. Yeah, so yeah, getting it out there. It's like finding, it's you need to learn a bit about how to sell yourself, and this is all about trying to find your spouse kind of thing. You should be that dedicated. Yeah, so when specifically coming to like a job search or like getting a full-time role, what I did is like a three-pronged approach. So first prong is the skills or the knowledge that you need. That is a must because otherwise you can't operate. Second is like the company pool. You should have like 5 to 10 company pool that are kind of associated with the work you have done. There is some interaction, and then you can apply to them and have a good chance of getting an interview. And the third is knowing people, knowing the right people in relevant positions, which can vouch for you, vouch for your work. So that part also comes into like visibility. So this is like visibility, and the third prong which I talked, like knowing about the right people like in managerial positions or director positions, that will make a case for you. This is like targeted visibility. You need to work out your network towards them. And I have seen many people who are in this mentality that no, I will not go out there, my work will speak for myself. This is great, but I'm talking here when you are starting out in your career, because when you're starting out in your career, you don't have to show much, right? You don't have that much experience that your work speaks for you. So you need to find a middle ground here. So do good work and get it visible. So this formula, I think, should work for most of the people most of the time. Yeah, this is a quick tip on job search. If you don't know like how to find people, just whatever you are working on, try to go through the Git logs. Try to Google or like Bing or something else, the authors, their email IDs, and probably you will find a blog. So try to read their blog, try to understand them, try to go and search about their history, like how did they get into open source and like how did they got a career out of it. So you will have a pretty good understanding, like 4 to 5 people, how did they go. So you will try to notice a pattern here, and just try to work on whatever thing you think is the best for you, because there are a lot of parameters, a lot of other things that you need to take care of. Now comes to the like how to decide like whether my work will be funded or like if I get any financial support, because the hard truth is passion not equal to practicality, and which is not equal to financial worth. You can be passionate about something, but if someone if there is no market, if there is no business model about it, you probably won't have a chance to get a full-time role, and probably that will get shifted to your side project, and you have to take up another job that has some market or some typical company. So try to learn about, like, try to see if there is some financial backing, whether it is foundation, how it is fundraising, or whether the project is funded by some companies, or like you can see like what the project has conferences. You can go through the sponsorship list, which are the companies which are sponsoring. So you will get an idea, like these are the companies which are sponsoring the conference, so probably they are using their technology, and start researching about that company, try to understand like business. You don't have to be an expert in this, but yeah, you need to be sure that your project is has a market out there, and probably which will drive the financial things, because at the end of the day you need to get paid. So keep this in mind. You want to get these three things into line: passion and practicality and financial worth. So if you crack these three, I think you are on a right track. Next, when to get started. So apart from those three things, timing is very important. So, but more important is time in the market. So always you will need to invest, and investing takes time. You need to be prepared that it will take 6 months or a year or 2 years. It depends on everybody. It depends on different market situation. It depends on timing. It depends on like who has more networked with the people. So those things are there. But if you stick around, if you give yourself time, if you are persistent, and if you are really mentally prepared that I want to get into open source, I want to have a career in open source, then time in the market in the long term will always be on the heavier side, and it will make a case for you. You just need to be, patient a bit, not drive just giving an attempt and it didn't succeed and you go off. So this might sound like a bit of philosophical, but I think it stands quite a bit of truth here. Finally, collaborate. Yeah, open source is all about collaboration. Try not to compete, which certain university and school we are taught, like competition is the key, but open source is differently. So you have to recalibrate your brain in that way. So these are the takeaways. I think we discussed all this. Yeah, there are some issues like imposter syndrome and burnout. I cannot cover this in this talk, but I think you can read about it and try to manage if you're facing these kind of things. Try to get someone to talk to, and probably they will help you out. Or you can just if you're interested, you can email me. So yeah, all in all, what is this? This is all getting the right controls in place. If you try to get these things done, probably it will happen. It's if you have done the right things, you have tuned all your controls in the place, then it's just a timing game. You just have to wait and wait and wait. Yeah, and finally, never-ending passion about open source, because in the long term, that's what you drive motivation, at least for me. So try to get your interest or passions aligned. If you're not, then see what in which domain you are interested, and try to steer that into that. That's it. I think one more thing I have to say, share your journey too, and I am ready for some questions.
Many thanks, Mr. Umang, for the presentations. Very interesting presentations. So we have a couple of questions in the chat notes.
How do you think university can support students to involve in open source projects? Just simply, I think they have, like at the end of the degree, they have something called as final year project or final project or assignment. So probably just shift those assignments to do open source work. Maybe a bug, maybe a feature, or there is every level of task you can get into open source, like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or feature based or anything. So I think The onus is on the faculty, so just try to get these things early on in the stages, like from second year or third year, not at the later stages, because it will take time to build up. Students will take time to build it up. How do you suggest coping with burnout on frost projects? I think you need to have a good social circles, because many people are working remote and they spend whole like their waking hours on computers. So good social circle, try to be vocal about it, and tell your like whoever you are reporting to that you are burning out. If they are understandable, they will give you some time off, because I got very supportive managers over my career, and I just go there and tell them this is not working out, I need some time off, and I take some time off, I travel, I do things which like non-computing things, sports or whatever. It's that's how I manage. What skills do you know before applying for GNOME in GSOC? How much time it took to learn them? I think it took me, like I said, the first GSOC I failed. I didn't get selected, but at that point I knew like the interfaces, like how does GitHub work, how does IRC work, how does Git works, how can I submit a pull request, what are the things that need to taken care of, like simple things like first readme, then there is a documentation on how to contribute, what is the code style you have to follow. So things like this I learned in the first year. So in the second year, what happened is I just needed to learn like the engineering parts, the libraries, system calls, or what are the things I need to do. So all those things I were left for the second year, because even if I failed in first year, I got the specifics right, and that helped me to get into second year. So maybe an year and a half, what would be a good time frame if you want it. I think that's it. If anybody
Okay.
has any questions, you can contact me on these channels. I will be happy to talk to you. And thank you for listening.
Many thanks. And actually, Mr. Jay going to have another talk after this. So, but probably that he want to take a break. So, yeah, and then we'll come back. Okay, are you ready now? So we're gonna have another presentation from Mr. Jane. So going to talk about a complex camera support library for Linux and Android and Chrome OS. His presentation title is Libcamera, Making Complex Cameras Easy. I would like to welcome Mr. Jane.
Hello, thanks for the intro. Let me just get this started. Okay. So hi again. I am going to introduce a new camera framework, which is called Libcamera, and what we are working, what problem it's trying to solve. Yeah, so let's start. Earlier, like 10, 15 years ago, cameras were simple, but now they aren't. So yeah, that's the summary. But yeah, if you can see the ASCII art on the presentation, cameras were simple. You would have a sensor and a CSI tool like interface, which would be on the SoC. And in the API, you will have a dev node, one place to control your frames, and one place to just request the frame and push it to your Windows or application or processing or whatever. So you would have simple things like a scaler, which will just try to scale the raw data according to the hardware set resolution and things like that. So this is a very simple thing: a scaler, a sensor, something scalar, resizer, and then just the output. And complexity increased over time by the introduction of image signal processors. So what are image signal processors? Image signal processors are a system peripheral. So imagine there are sub devices into that, but typically speaking, these are system peripherals. So they are operating at a very high frequency that operates on digital images, like like a scaler or a resizer or format converter, or it crops the frame into some specific resolution. So this entire thing makes the image signal processors. So you can see these are the image signal processor itself had a subcomponents like DMA, direct memory access, so that it can write directly to the RAM, resizer, scaling, cropping, pixel format conversions. So what happens is, in order to coordinate the data flow between these sub devices, kernel exposed a new API, which is called media controller. So which basically this is the sensor you have. Sensor will grab the raw data, it will push it down to the ISP. So in order to control the ISP, you need to have a media controller, and you can see like the complexity has increased a bit. The presentation didn't load for me. Okay. So this is what happens. So seeing from the 3 blocks, we are now down to this. So in the red boxes, you have the sensor like camera sensor, flash, etc. In the green, you have the ISP. So these are the sub devices. This is a resizer. This is AEWB, like the white balance. It's doing something to the frames to adjust the white balance and all that. And the blue boxes are the API to control them. So you can see like we had a video node, right? And we have now multiple video nodes. This is the resizer. So this is the resizer API. This is AWB. We'll have some another API to control it. So how many control points you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So multiple control points to get the frames, to get one frame. And like this is already sounding a bit cumbersome to write an application on top of it. And mind you, ISPs are platform specific. Different platforms have different ISPs. So even if you get the flow right, it will probably not work on another platform. Something like if it works on Raspberry Pi, it will not work on x86, etc. things. So from an application higher level point of view, what has happened? Camera applications were using V4L2, that is a video for Linux camera API to get the frames, right? One place to look for frames, one place to control them. Now, with the emergence of complex ISPs, the camera application has to take care of V4L2, camera has to talk to media controllers, so the media flow is right. Camera has to talk again to sub devices and try to coordinate them. So this is sounding a bit more complex. But I think this practice has been this practice of writing camera application has been there for a while, especially in embedded systems. For example, you have phones, you have cell phones. Those are embedded systems, and for some time this is using this very platform specific type of application writing. So let's crystal down the problem statement. What has happened? Applications like are requested to know a lot of details of the underlying hardware. What are the platforms they are running on? What is the ISP? What are the components of the ISP to coordinate the media flow? And triggering capture operations require precise configuration. So you have an application. First of all, you need to do is configure the ISP, like initialize the ISP for frames to get captured. So this already doesn't happen like magic. And like if you are a application developer, you can imagine like how the code would look like, just pushing just initializing the ISP for every specific platform. Recent modern laptops are shipping with powerful ISPs like Intel IPO3. We will talk about it later in the presentation. So what has happened? This is a snapshot from a mailing list, which has like some user reported webcam not recognized on Dell Latitude laptop. So what is the reply? I will just read it out. This laptop embed one of the new complex cameras from Intel. They require IPU3 driver. Though unlike traditional webcam, you need special user space to use it. There is no embedded firmware to manage focus, white balance, etc. User space code needs to read the stats and manage that. As of now, there is no good plan on how to support this in user space. So this is the problem statement we are looking at. And hence, Libcamera. So what does it do? Libcamera abstracts away all these specific V4L2 and media controller things for the applications. You just need to use Libcamera, and it will the Libcamera will take care of initializing, setting up, and delivering you frames. You just don't have to deal with V4L2 and media controller APIs from the kernel. Aims to be compatible with already written Linux V4L2 based applications, Android and Chrome OS, because Android and Chrome OS has their own HAL. So there is a component in Libcamera which talks to that HAL and it can deliver iframes. So ideally, it can run on Chrome OS and Android both. And yeah, speaking specific about the project, it has good documentation. There are a couple of samples on everything, like sample applications, application developer guide, pipeline handler guide. What is a pipeline handler? We will discuss probably. Couple of things more about the project. It's a mail-based development, mailing list plus patchwork. That's because Libcamera is primarily developed by kernel developers, so they are not much into GitHub, GitLab type of things. Meson and Ninja, and they are great, and it's newcomers and contributors finally, because this is a new project and I started working on like 6 months back. So I had no idea, but the support is fantastic. You can, if you are interested, just come on to IRC or mailing list, and you will see people are very helpful here. This is the website for you to read some documentation. These are some of the talks. If you want to try to dig into more into this space, like what are complex cameras and what is the problem with running them on Linux, or what new has happened in this space, what vendors are doing. So these are the 3 talks that I would recommend. So you will have a lot of a prerequisite to start getting into it. So let's now talk about the camera stack, the Libcamera, like how it works. So basically, you have user space kernel. The Libcamera sits in between. It talks to video nodes, media controller, subdevs, and it sets up all these things. On top of it, you have like V4L2 compatibility layer, you have something, we have a GStreamer element. So GStreamer pipeline, you can just pop in Libcamera and you will, with the sync and the source and the sync pad, you can just get the data flow in and out. We also have Android camera HAL, which is because Libcamera has a goal to support Chromium OS and Android. So we are moving to that direction also. And native camera application just directly talk to Libcamera for frames to get camera information, what are the controls on the camera, or what is the resolution and things like that. So what is next? The Libcamera architecture. So like zooming into the Libcamera layer, what is in there? So there is a device manager which just runs and tells you about like what are the devices on the system, or if you can find any cameras, multiple cameras, because like Android and there are use cases where Android and Chromium OS have multiple cameras, front and back cameras, multiple camera sensors. So things like that, it sets up and gives you the information, and then you can just choose, I want to talk to this camera, please turn it on, and stuff like that. There is a camera device, which is the primary camera object. It has state machines, streams, and access control. So what is basically state machine is, what's the current state of camera? Is it running? Is it configured? Is it uninitialized or something like that? What streams can it provide? If it can provide MJPEG, or if it can provide NV12, or whatever the stream support is, because it's the internal part. As an application developer, you don't have to know much about it, how it sets up, but it's the internal part, at what resolution it can give a particular frame, and access control, like what are the controls on the camera, basic things. And then we have the pipeline handler stuff. Pipeline handler is basically all the abstracted device-specific code that sets up your ISP, that configures your ISP, that takes care of giving you the frames to the camera device, and the camera device will hand over to the application. All this device-specific kernel things is abstracted away into the pipeline handler. So for every platform, you will have one pipeline handler. You will have UVC, like USB webcams. You will have a different pipeline handler for Raspberry Pi camera. You will have a different pipeline handler for a Rockchip platform and things like that. And next we comes to what is here is image processing, IPA, image processing algorithm. So this is basically a secret sauce for the vendors to improve their camera. And this actually runs, the goal is to run this in a sandbox so that it cannot talk to the real hardware. And so what is here is, because vendors, they spend years and years of research on image processing algorithms. Like there's like 10 years of research into that. So they probably will not open source it. But still we have to, the goal is the goal of the Libcamera is that we still be able to use those binaries in such a way that for like end-to-end compatibility, it still works. The vendor doesn't have to take care of the entire camera stack framework. He can just provide us with the IPA and it will just load into that. The long-term goal is we will develop our own IPA, open source IPAs, which in a very, very long term, like 5 years, 10 years down the line, will probably supersede the vendor's IPA. And it's just spins up out of there. Like you have the GNOME desktop, what it was 20 years earlier, and see it now. A lot of progress has been made. So the entire goal to bring this into a sandbox is that we just don't want to go different ways. We want to make things work. So for now, it is the sandboxing and things like that. Yeah, and there are helper and support classes. We will discuss it when we go through the API. These are very trivial. If you are into a writing application, this will just you will read the documentation and you will understand it. What is next? Yeah, platform supported by Libcamera, UVC, like your USB webcams, most of them there. IPU3, the Intel processing unit. I think image processing, something like that. The ROC chip, we have support for ROC chip, PIMC, which is a kernel image testing driver. If you don't have like a camera on hand, you can just try to get a virtual device through WinC. So we have a platform, a pipeline handler for that. We have the Raspberry Pi platform integrated, and we actually are in touch with the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and they are helping us, and we are helping them a lot on making things work here. And this is here, insert your own platform. If you know something which is not supported by Libcamera, please let us know. We will try to make things work there. So let's quickly go through the Libcamera API. I just want to give you an overview like how the application would look like. Application writing, like a camera application, something like we have what to say, Cheese camera in GNOME, which is a web camera application. So how ideally it would look like. So these are the objects we will dealing with. Camera manager, as I told you, it will enumerate all the cameras present on the system. Camera configuration, you have to, before using a camera, you have to configure it in such a way like what resolutions you want, what pixel format you want. Config validation, it's like a kind of configuration, but it's like a validating, like the application says, I can give you 1920 1080p, but camera cannot give. So they will negotiate to get a middle ground, precisely what the camera can provide. And there is frame buffer allocation to write your frames to memory, and there is finally the frame capture. Let's go through it. Camera manager, you create a camera manager object, you start it, and this is just running a for loop to enumerate all the cameras. So this will print all the camera IDs, whatever the ID is for the camera on your screen. Simple. And from the cameras, camera manager 0. So we are selecting the first camera and storing it. And then we are asking the camera manager to get this camera object, if you remember the whole camera device object for us. And camera acquire. So we need to acquire a camera so that no two applications can simultaneously, you try to use a camera. So when the acquire call succeeds, it's an exclusive lock until the camera is released. And then what happens is camera configuration. Like we need to tell the camera what is our intention of use. Do we want to capture images? Do we record a video? Do we want to stream with the camera? So these are different roles that you can specify with, this stream role class. You can have like a video capture, raw capture, stream, things like that. So accordingly, the camera generate configuration function will generate a unique camera configuration for that particular stream role. So after you have got the stream role, what happens is a stream configuration. So suppose I have selected video recording, So for video recording, it will give me a configuration, something like NV12 and at 180p resolution. So it will try to store that into a stream configuration. So now this becomes a stream configuration. So for example, it is giving me this resolution with an MJPEG pixel format. This is the default one that the camera gives. But let's say I don't want to use this one. So what is I will tell the application, like I will write the application request as stream config.size.width 640. I don't want 1280 resolution. I want the 640 into 481. So I will try to place this request, and go again through the validation function that we earlier talked. It's kind of a negotiation. Camera is giving me this much resolution. I don't want this. I want the 641 and try to validate. So what it will do, if the camera supports 640 into 480, it will return as success. Otherwise, it will give probably a lower resolution, whatever the camera can provide, something like 800 into 600 or something, whatever the camera can provide. So after that negotiation phase, what we have to simply do, we have to allocate memory for the frames to be written. So there's a frame buffer allocator class that you can use. You can, I think, use your own memory allocator. So for every stream, the allocator is allocating some buffers. Why do I say some buffers? Because it can know like what is the optimum number of buffers you need. 4 buffers, 8 buffers, 12 buffers, etc. So you can just print them out, how many buffers it has allocated for a particular stream. Generally, it's 4. I think you don't need more than 4. But yeah, still, you can configure it in some particular way. After the memory allocation has done, we finally proceed to capture a frame. So a frame is a full-size frame, which you see on the screen. So to capture a frame happens through a new object called request. Request is simply an association between one stream with the frame buffer. Suppose you have stream mjpeg and the frame buffer we have allocated in the previous slide. So it will just try to map that. Request is just nothing but an association between those two. And finally, after you create a request, you need to queue it to the camera with a camera queue request function, and just call camera start. So it will start processing the request, and after the request is completed, you will get a request completed signal, and thereafter you can get your frame data in the request completed signal handler, the callback function. So there you can do all sort of things. You want to write a post processor, or you want to convert those things like a software converter, or do something with computer vision, things like that. After you have the frame, you are free to do, or just dump it on the screen, or dump it to a file to just check what is the frame data you are getting. So if you are interested, I am mentioning just quickly the Libcamera sample applications. There is scan, which is like a command line utility. You can just play it around, try to figure out what the camera provides in terms of resolution, stream rules, pixel format. There is a QCam, which is a graphical user interface application. You can try to read the source code for it. And there is also SimpleCam, which is the minimal reference code that I have been presenting in the last 5 or 6 slides. There is decent documentation and application developer guide. If you go down to this path in the Git repo. Yeah, that's it for me. Please join the project. Libcamera is a very young project. There are all sort of contributions you can do, documentation or fixing bugs, or like trying to just speak at conferences like this, or anything else. So please let us know, and I am ready with some questions. Okay. I can see your program was written in C++. Do you think C is still relevant? I think C is still relevant, particularly because projects like the kernel are going on for so long time, and at that point you didn't have like things like Rust or Python or something else. So I think it's still relevant as a programmer to have C knowledge, because a lot of abstractions are like you understand the memory model, how it works, and more internals that will help you with optimization problems, even if you're writing into a higher level languages. Does that answer your questions?
So any more questions? I think we still have a lot of time. Minutes. Any questions? So I think if that's all, so I think we'll just a break and we'll start again at the next sessions.
Cool. I think that's it. Thank you for listening. Yeah, sure. Have a good rest of the conference.
Okay, thank you for sharing your interesting project with us.
The landscape of software development is changing.
Can you just confirm that you can see my screen? It's turning into presentation. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen? It's turning into presentation. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen? It's turning into presentation. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen? It's turning into presentation mode now.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, perfect. So let me give you some idea why do I even make this call, this presentation. I was not really sure about it, but I feel like it makes sense. This is more like gathering of ideas, and I would like to hear also your input. And it's something that I've discussed like with friends, like what do they see as, like new opportunities. Even when I was talking to my boss like maybe a year ago about like what could be done with Leap, and like where I feel like maybe the true power is not really used, or I don't see it, or I don't get the feedback from users. I feel like this is the right way to take. So this is also why I would like to talk about this and this topic a little bit more often. And you could call it, I didn't want to call them partners like for Leap. That sounds like a little bit like SUSE partners. Like, for us, it's community, right? So, and then community can be also represented by companies behind, like Data with Neil, for example, and so on. So this is what I mean by companies.
Hi.
In this scope. Hello, Neil. And so why should be the next version of Leap interesting for them? Like what could they get, and they don't get like with the current release, which is 15.2. So you've probably already heard about me. So I'm Luboš Kocman. Yeah, the surname is tricky in German and English. So yeah, it's Kocman. I'm release manager for OpenSUSE Leap since 1st this year, and I used to work on RHEL before, and like on high school, I was really interested in open stories, where I was leading the local user group. So the agenda, I told you about closing the Leap gap on the previous slide. Here, I will just repeat it in case that you haven't seen the previous presentation. It's just one slide here, and then I will talk about the opportunities. It's like 6 slides and then discussion. Okay, so closing the Leap gap. So as spoken before, for those who didn't hear it, it's an effort driven by SUSE to bring SLE and Leap closer together. And by closer, we mean actually that we will base Leap on SLE binaries. So this was the outcome of the research and the Jump prototype that we came up with. So right now we have a distribution which you can already download. It's called OpenSUSE Jump, and it's basically a concept or implementation of the concept that should be enrolled in OpenSUSE Leap in future versions, like either 15.2.1 or 15.3. If you watch the previous slides, we will know next Tuesday where we have go, no go for whether we make the 15.2.1 release or not. And I would like to talk a little bit about like what opportunities do we get with the new concept. And like we will have unified code streams, we will have the exactly same binaries on both distributions when it comes to 4,000 packages which are actually shipped in SUSE Linux Enterprise. I'm not talking RPMs, I'm talking about like let's call it SRPMs, maybe that's better. The concept of building the distribution, we will get S390, which I was already contacted by one company that's kind of really fitting their workflow for testing applications. That they start on Leap, then they actually test some, let's say, do some smoke testing, then they actually migrate to SLE, and they finish some more testing. And because the smoke testing happens a little bit more often, they actually want to remove the burden of registration, which doesn't happen on the Leap side. And since the binaries will be identical for their scope, it's enough because they have applications that don't need anything that wouldn't be in SLE. Like they can really use it, and for them it's kind of really beneficial. And when they heard that it's coming, S390 is coming, they were really surprised because then they can have the same workflow for everything. So this is a big plus that I see. And the tools that will be available to community members will be also available to these companies, right? So when Neil has access to Jira, SUSE.com, and he can raise features, that means that Dato can technically raise features, right? And I feel like this is the investment into Leap can actually really pay off for these companies. And yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more on the next slide, so I will not spoil it. So the first that I can see is the identical development platform. And like I would say that you have a lot of people and companies that may be on budget and just paying for like SLE licenses for everybody may not be like a good option for them. Like you have a lot of companies that can afford it, but also a lot that can't. And if they want to make application maybe available to Leap and SLE, it may be a little bit more effort on both sides. And since it's identical, I believe that developing one application that kind of runs on both, as long as you stick with the 4,000 packages, which are coming from SLE, it has never been easier because it will work. And for the differences which actually appear in between these two distributions, and there are some, you can if you run the installer, you will see that in Leap you can actually choose KDE, which is not the case in SLE, right? We have a slightly different branding. We have FBC compiler support and GDB test results. We have slightly different install images. And there will be few more, I suppose. But you can see that the list is relatively small and it can be kept on a single wiki page, and we can go relatively into depth what's actually different. And if you know what to expect that is different, I believe that you can really build like a reliable platform for testing or development, and it will run on SLE as well. What's kind of interesting, and I feel like nobody covered it, is that we are still discussing the kernel flavors, right? For a new Leap. We have a bunch of options. We are still undecided. Like you could have like unified kernel, which would be same for SLE or for Leap. You could have different kernel for SLE as server, and Leap. Maybe you could reuse the Leap kernel on desktop because it's slightly better tuned for application responsiveness. And so this is still kind of undecided, but like we are working it out. It will be definitely solved in 15.3. You can expect that. So I believe that, and you will always have an option that we know that if there will be two kernels, that you will have option to install the SLE kernel. Okay, so if it matters, like you will be able to use the same kernel, and that I believe will make it an ideal development platform for companies on budget or individuals. For they wouldn't normally buy the, let's say, subscription for SLE, but in this way they basically get identical content if you don't count the branding and so on, and you can live without SUSE support. So the making app available for both SLE and Leap has never been easier. So what does it mean? So we were talking about building, that you build once essentially, and that it should be the same libraries and so on. I mean, binary identical libraries, not just the same when it comes to APIs, but identical. And the publishing is also something that I would like to embrace. Like you may say, well, that you can already do that with Package Hub, but right now, if you submit something for Leap, it gets built in Leap, it gets shipped in Leap, but there is an automated submission or manual submission to backports where it gets built. Maybe there is a conflict with some of the SLE package, maybe it doesn't. Maybe somebody has to work it out, like fix some things first before it can be available. Unfortunately, this part is still going to be problematic. But now you actually don't have to make a separate submission for backports in order to have it in Package Hub, because OpenSUSE Leap will actually consolidate backports. I mean, the next version of Leap. So submission, if you actually submit, let's say, package, I don't know, maybe some Qt binaries are actually in SLE. Let me think of, maybe Python Qt. Let's say that Python Qt wouldn't be in SLE if it is, but you would like to submit an update to Jump or future Leap for Python Qt, and therefore you submit submission for Jump, and if it's actually coming from backports, it will be redirected to backports, it will be processed there. So one submission will be accepted, built once. In Package Hub, I know that we have the continuous rebuild, but what I mean is that you build it just in one project, and it actually gets delivered to SLE and Leap, right? So there should be less effort. So we just handle the submission once, and we know that it will work for both, which I see as a big benefit. And also it allows us to join forces with Package Hub people, and maybe they can focus a little bit on the delivery to SLE, and we can focus on actually the Leap part, the traditional, processing of submissions going through OpenQA and so on. So I feel like this is really cool, at least to me, and I can see it already because I'm hitting some requests to add packages to Package Hub, and I see the problematic parts and so on. And like since I'm now closer to it than ever, like I'm getting some more knowledge on that area as well, and I feel like this is beneficial for way more people because Package Hub team is currently relatively small, and having extra resources from release team will be definitely beneficial for both sides. Yeah, the little letters, if you can't read them, that's the mentioning of the conflicts with SUSE SLE packages. Imagine that you want to add new package, but it provides the same file, so we have to work it out in the end. So unfortunately, this problem won't disappear, and I see it's currently painful. Just to let you know that backports are using RPM lane, which like has access to what files are basically provided by SLE packages. And like if there is some conflict, it basically blocks the submission on, and package is not built and it's not released. So this is some sort of sanity checking. So next topic is the effortless migration. I already mentioned on my previous talk, maybe even here at the beginning, that the expectation from migration is that you install, next generation Leap, and if you want to migrate to SLE, you exchange branding packages, you enable a bunch of repos from SEC, which will get automatically enabled by zipper migrate or like just migrate, and you are done. So we should be talking about like maybe like 2 minutes or maybe even less, in certain cases if you use zipper. Um, Instead of maybe half an hour of downloading, I don't know, like updates for 4,000 packages or more, because, like the checksum is different, the release is different, and so on. This will not be the case. So again, I've seen one company that described me how they use Leap, and basically what I will not name the company, but what they said is that they do smoke testing on Leap, and then at certain part of the workflow, if the smoke testing passes, they actually initiate migration to SLE, and then they continue. And since it's identical now, and like don't take me like that you could certify that application on Leap. That's not happening. But if you want, like testing to happen, and you want to really like make it really short, maybe run it like 1,000 times a day and so on, I feel like the quick migration now can actually make this workflow very effective. Also, before I knew that the migration had struggled with the vendor changes, so if you actually like replace OpenSUSE sign package with SUSE LLC sign package, like you actually have to confirm it and so on. We are currently struggling with it in Jump as well, but the end result that we expect in 15.3 and 15.2.1, if it gets released, is that there are no problems, and the exchange is actually whitelisted. Like we actually really, the vendor change needs to be enabled and like basically be invisible to user, because this is the entire concept. Like if we decide to fork package in Leap, or if the package from that used to be, let's say in backports, is moved to SLE, these changes will happen all the time, and like we don't want to like bug user about them. It just needs to be very seamless. So and what I feel that this is a great fit, if you know that you are working with binary identical distribution, maybe you are a small startup, and maybe in area where SUSE is kind of winning, and that in the future you would consider migration, I feel like this is the ideal platform that you should start with, because like it'll be super seamless. So this is one big benefit that I see. Again, like, and this one is my favorite, to be honest, out of what you see. So let's say that you are a company, you want to influence SLE and Leap, but like maybe you are too small to become SUSE partner, or like you are not there yet. I know that it comes with certain responsibilities and so on, but if you take maybe case of Neil here, and you will actually become contributor to Leap, and you want to make sure that your app stack works on Leap, the future generation of Leap, or Leap Next, whatever you want to call it, and you have the ability to send submissions to SUSE Linux Enterprise, through the redirection and mirroring, as I was talking. You have option to actually open feature request, OpenSUSE partner request features against SUSE Linux Enterprise. Like, you are basically a partner, but in this case, you're also a Leap contributor, where I see benefit on both sides, and this is what I find like really cool. I know that Neil mentioned in the past that, but like, how do I test that it actually really works on SLE? Developer SUSE.com may be the answer. I will not tell details because I shouldn't, I guess. But if you study it, like, you will figure out that maybe there is a way to solve the problem. So again, what tools I'm talking about is the Jira access, is the mirroring of submissions. So I hope that this is interesting for you if you work for a company that may want to influence SLE, and it's not a partner, but Leap seems to be a viable way to go. Also, in the video that was linked in the previous slide, or maybe even before, here, you will see how the actual mirroring works. There's a bunch of screenshots if you would be interested. Maybe interesting part to say is that when the submission is mirrored in OBS, like, you actually see the person who approved the submission as the creator of the submission on SLE side. But like, you can click through and you can actually see the original submission, so you can figure out who was the person who opened it, and there you will get like, if you write a comment, it has to be anonymous because of whatever Works Council GDPR rules, but you will be able to have conversation with the maintainer in this way. So the next thing that I would like to mention is the S390X availability. I said it was interesting for one company. I believe it may be interesting for others. Again, like in various workflows, deployment testing, and so on, where this can find use. I was actually surprised. I thought like, okay, I feel like this may be not exactly like ground for leap, and I was surprised just by the first company that reached out to me regarding this effort that they would find useful. One thing that people don't really talk about, and I feel like it's only fair to mention it to the community, is that we get extra S390X, but like ARMv7, the 32-bit one, is not really there is no support for it in SLE. And we have to work out how to do that. So if there would be an intermediate release, we decided that ARMv7 would be skipped here. Therefore, ARMv7 would have only 15.2, and then we would actually enable the support in 15.3 again, and it would have to be probably worked out as a separate project. But this is not yet set in stone, so the ARMv7 is still a question for lead. Like, we know that we probably want to do that. We don't want to disappoint people who use it, but how it will be done, how it will be built specifically in OBS is still open question. Maybe we should revisit the use cases and figure out whether maybe some combination with factory would make sense. I guess the plans are still open. If ARMv7 is interesting for you, I recommend to reach out to us. Maybe you want to reach out to Dirk Miller or Guillaume, who is part of the OpenSUSE release team, and you want to actually raise your use cases, so we can make sure that whatever we do with ARMv7 matches your company as well. So this is basically all. I told you I will have few use cases which I believe are interesting, or I was thinking about them in the last few weeks, and I was thinking that that could be it. Like, these are the areas where we definitely improve. Do you see any other use of how CTLG can help you, or maybe doesn't? It actually does the exact opposite. Like, feel free to raise any concerns or questions or ideas.
The landscape of software development is changing. Today's users expect applications that are always on and accessible everywhere. To keep up, centralized apps are shifting to distributed cloud services, built and run by teams all around the world. With all of this complexity, software teams need a DevOps solution that enables them to become faster and more efficient while staying secure and reliable. Luckily, there's GitLab, a complete DevOps platform delivered as a single application. Get powerful collaboration capabilities like agile planning, version control, and code review, multi-cloud CI/CD that enables you to deploy anywhere, and built-in security and monitoring right out of the box. GitLab makes you fast, so you can meet business demand and react to disruptions. GitLab makes you efficient, helping you improve productivity, reduce rework, and work from anywhere. All while helping you build and maintain trust as you reduce vulnerabilities, streamline auditing, and stay compliant. What's more, everyone can contribute to this open source application, so GitLab is continuously improving. Are you ready to deliver better products faster, work more efficiently, and reduce security and compliance risk? Try GitLab today.
The GNOME GitLab is a single application that covers the entire DevOps lifecycle. It's a single application for the whole development team to work together.
We went from just version control to now 10 stages of the DevOps lifecycle. The scope of the product is 10 times as big as when we started. We're finding all the time that the more we add to GitLab, the better it becomes.
One of the things that was really positively viewed from my management was how our roadmap and GitLab's roadmap seem on the same path. We want less people managing things, more computers managing things, we want more automation, we want less spaghetti tying all the different tools together. So a lot of that lines up really well. At this point, we're not ready for the things that GitLab has right now.
For me, I think the thing that's really unique is not only just that we do all of this scope, but that it is how deeply the scope is integrated. The single application really enables a class of solutions that just weren't possible before. With GitLab, you'll have an experience that you can never get. No matter how well you integrate them, no matter how much time you spend on your central IT group putting the pieces together, you just can't do the same things that we can do. And that's really, really powerful.
We tried and tested tools. We were looking for a tool set, but unfortunately nothing at that stage was mature enough to actually take us forward. So we kind of looked at how we could improve our current tool chain, and that's where GitLab fitted right in. Basically, new users that are using GitLab don't need much experience using it. It's really easy to enable them straight off the bat from a different company and just get them rolling.
I don't like to predict the future too much, but I do know the directions we're going. Bringing more people involved in the software development lifecycle, getting more complete, where it makes sense, not just to arbitrarily get more people in, but where it adds value. Some great things pop out when you do a single application that covers this whole space.
DevOps is still in its early stages, and we've seen all the individual tools in the DevOps lifecycle, and now is a time to take that and build something bigger. Not just hopping from tool to tool, but having an integrated tool for that whole lifecycle. If we get there, we can be a very enduring software company that will change how people collaborate. Our mission is everyone can contribute. We want everyone to contribute to digital products, to GitLab as a software product, but we also want everyone to contribute to our organization. I'm very happy when I see the merge request coming that changes something in the company that's not from a team member. It's from someone that follows us, that cares about us, and wants to improve something in our organization.
It's not just us that's building GitLab. Over 2,000 contributors have contributed to our solution. This is an open source movement that is happening and it's changing the way we develop software. It's exciting.
Hello and good evening. I think good evening for all of us at Asia and probably good morning for those in Europe. So welcome again to track number 2 for our evening session for today. So for today's session, we will be having Mr. Bayu Aji, which is where he will be presenting and maintaining Inkscape community in campus during pandemic. So, Mr. Bayu, I think you can hear me and take it away.
Okay. Thank you. Could you hear me? Okay. Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you for the GNOME Asia Summit 2020 for the chance for me to talk here. I'm going to talk about how I maintain Inkscape community and campus during pandemic. Okay, this is a bit about me. I've used Inkscape for about 10 years, since around 2010. At the time, I've tried to encourage my friend to use Inkscape, but it seems like I'm failed. So I joined this Inkscape Circle community at 2016. So it's not me who found this community, but it's my friend, Mr. Rahman. If you know, yesterday he present here too. And then I'm also a member of Inkscape ID since 2016 too. And I joined the Blank on Linux developer as art team, you know, since I do the developer or engineer stuff, I only know how to draw, so this is what I can do. I joined the art team to support by drawing. Feel free to contact me via email, Facebook, or Telegram. I haven't used Instagram for now. I've made an account, but I rarely open it. This is Inkscape Circle Instagram. You could just check it. And this is Inkscape ID. I think I need to mention it here because it, as far as I know, it's one of the biggest graphic design open source community in Indonesia. So you could check it at the Instagram and or the website. There are a lot of cool illustration, design, and so on. This is Blank on Linux. It's one of distro from Linux distribution from Indonesia. Now they are developing the latest version, and I hope it will be done great. You could check. You could also support this distribution. This is what I've made for the previous release of Blank on Linux. I've made some illustration for wallpaper and logo. Okay. I'll tell you a bit about Inkscape Circle story here. It started as Inkscape Learning Group in sport faculty, Yogyakarta State University. I don't know in the other campus, but in this campus in Yogyakarta State University, the other faculty like science, like the other faculty, they are dominated by the proprietary software in graphic design. So I found this student from sport faculty a bit unique. They don't care about the software. They just want to know how to design, how to use vector graphic design software, or how to edit photos. They don't care about the tool they use, but they want to know how to. And I found this interesting because I haven't found in the other faculty at the time, at 2016. So we started as Inkscape Learning Group, but then we also learned something else other than Inkscape, like Jim, Krita, or the other software. Sometimes we also talk about a topic other than graphic design. And then we held this first Inkscape training along with Muslim student community of sport faculty, namely Keluarga Muslim Al Hidayah in 2016. That's, as I know, the first Inkscape training event in Yogyakarta State University for the past 20 years. I mean, I haven't seen one since 2010 in the campus, right? In the campus in Yogyakarta State University. And the response was good. It's not the participant is not only from the campus, from Jakarta City, but also from Gadjah Mada University, from Amikom, from some other campus around Yogyakarta State University. And then after that, we often participate in Inkscape training and events in Yogyakarta. These are photos of our first Inkscape training. Held by sport faculty Muslim student community and Inkscape Circle. You may know, maybe you know some people here, especially if you're a Inkscape ID member. And this one is yes, it's Inkscape class. We also held it with Muslim student community of sport faculty. Well, after the first training, we often arrange event together. This is our last offline event. It's sharing session by Inkscape Circle and Inkscape ID, and also I forgot to mention one here is Coping. Coping is one working space in Yogyakarta. this last offline event of us is good enough. So around 30 or 40 participants there. And the speaker is here too. I know that Rani Amina in this meeting too. Okay. Well, I'd like to say I haven't congratulated Rani Amina for his wedding, so congratulations, Rani Amina. So this is Inkscape Circle activities. This is mainly around 2016. So the first one is intensive class. This class is like a real campus class. We have this attendance form. We have this weekly meeting at the same time. We usually hold it at night, at evening. I mean, at evening, because in the morning until afternoon, sport faculty students are busy. So the meeting are at evening, around 7 or 8 p.m. till 9 or 10 p.m. That's the intensive class, and this intensive class is supported by a local foundation who that support the empowerment and social and economic. So they are glad to support our intensive class. And then the next is how-tos with daily software. It's like intermezzo or variant of intensive class. So we don't only talk about Inkscape or graphic design, but also talk about something else, like being productive with your phone apps, with your Office suite, and so on. And the third is online discussion. We have this WhatsApp group. Well, at the time, it's still difficult to introduce other messaging or chat apps other than WhatsApp. So we usually talk about what we've learned in the class in this group. And we also have a tutorial session. The difference between tutorial session and the intensive class is tutorial session is just one time only. It's not serial, just one time. Like we want to make something, then we hold it. At the intensive class, the participant is just like a real campus class. It's just the same person. I don't really remember, but it's around 10 to 15%. But in the tutorial, it's just open for everyone who wants to join. And the next is design challenge. It's usually related with, it is a follow-up of tutorial session or intensive class. And then the last was seminar or workshop, which arranged occasionally. It's not always us only, but also sometimes they collaborate with the other community or the other organization. Okay, that's the activity. That's our activity before the pandemic. And this, yeah, this is after the pandemic. Since most of our activities held or arranged in physical or offline, then we only have this online discussion left. In class, the how-to, the tutorial session, design challenge, and seminar workshop is usually offline. So we only have this online discussion and WhatsApp group, which is, I think, it's not really effective. So we need to do something, right? We need to do something so that the community could still active. This is what we do after the pandemic. We held online meet and greet. It's held around 2 months. So it's just for saying hi. We don't talk much about Inkscape and stuff. We just want to say hi. We want to meet. We want to see each other's face because we haven't met after a long time. And we also have this short time offline discussion. It is between 2 or 3 persons in Yogyakarta. Well, it's not really effective to talk a lot. And the third one we have online. Okay, this online sharing session and Inkscape Circle relaunch is what we do to reactivate, to reintroduce Inkscape Circle to the student, because we haven't held any event since February, so it's around 9 months. We have an activity, so we plan this event sharing session, and we plan to relaunch Inkscape Circle. And then after that, we we make a poster to invite new member to join the community. And what we plan for the next, our plan for the next is, the first one is really simple. We would like to migrate our online group to Telegram, because due to the privacy and to the ease of access, we prefer this discussion on Telegram. The next one is we want to plan this online intensive class. We want to make this online intensive class again, and we'll try to I hope there will be a local foundation to support this again like before, but it's not our main goal. Our main goal is just we want to make the online intensive class again. And the last one is we want to collaborate with other community, foundation, and individual to introduce about Inkscape and open source. Okay, I think that's all. Any question or maybe thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, thank you, Bayu. So, just briefly, I'm quite interested in how you're trying to migrate from. I think currently you are just running in WhatsApp or some sort of like limited numbers, and you are migrating to Telegram. But how do you plan to, like, for example, sometimes it's hard to learn from based on text, because sometimes people need instruction, like probably something like Zoom or something like that. So is there any is there any sort of like planning to do an online seminar, like just like our GNOME Asia like today, Mr. Bayu?
We haven't used like well, if we collaborate with Teamscape and button 2, but usually we arrange it with Google Meet or Zoom. But now we prefer Google Meet because Zoom is a bit heavy for. Yes.
Okay. All right.
After
Okay.
the question, well, yeah, let me answer the
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. You can answer those. I think there's a two question from our viewer here.
Okay.
So,
what were the biggest challenge need to deal during the pandemic with community? Well, the community, we know that there are a lot of online event. Right? After the pandemic, all event go online. So the challenge is how to our existence, because we're a bit late to adapt. So we need to reintroduce and make sure people, more students know about this Inkscape Circle community. That's, I think, the answer for the first question. And what do you really expect personally when managing an open source community in this case? Please, more specific. I think I know who asked this. Okay. What I expect personally is I want personally I want more people to okay, in campus, in academic side, I want the students to understand about software, about license, about not being not using the illegal software. I think that's the simplest thing. And then the next one, I want them to understand about the open source community. If open source is not just about free thing you can use, but you could also collaborate, you could also contribute back to the community. And I hope that it's not just me and my friend that want to contribute, but also we want to encourage the new member to understand what this, so they could be proud to use open source, and I hope they could contribute back to the community. I think that's my answer to the second question.
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued when you're saying that it's not just a free thing, it's like a contribute thingy. So yeah, it's same. It's sort of like what I'm thinking also, because I think we've been pampered too much on free things, and even in force. I can't remember. There's a term saying that don't act it as a free beer. And in Malaysia, we cannot say beer. We can say teh tarik. So it's not, don't act as free teh tarik, but as in freedom.
Yeah. Yes.
And okay. Also, I'm just probably you can elaborate on what I'm trying to ask here, because you say that you are kind of late doing this sort of like online seminar. But I think for me, I think it's better late than never. But how do you really focus on what is it called, something like limitation on a network? Because I do understand in Indonesia, also in Malaysia, we some of part of our region, we have very limited, not just in landline but also on wireless network. So, is there any way that probably you can counter on this issue?
Yes. Yeah. Usually it's the important thing for online seminar or training is just the speaker, right? The speaker or the trainer. So we usually prefer not to share the video. Like this time, I just share the slide, but not the videos. I'm afraid that I will get this connection issue. So usually we just share the screen, and we prefer the right. We just give the speaker or the trainer to understand, but to prepare well about the connection issue.
All right. So I think someone did ask. I think okay. So far there's no I think there's no other question. So anything to add before you end your talk today?
I think it's enough. Thank you for everyone to attend this summit. Want to say thank you for GNOME Asia Summit 2020 organizer and sponsor for giving me a chance to talk here. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So thank you, Mr. Bayu, for your talk today. So just to remind you guys that we will continue our session after this with Explore Graphic with Explore Graphic Design with Inkscape. So kind of like one-to-one. So there's a continuation over there. But we will continue our session at track 1. So there's no continue on this session. So next session will be continue at 5:15 p.m. local time, which is probably around 10 minutes plus and minus. So hopefully you guys can tune or move to our track 1 after this, and see you there. Thank you.
The GNOME team is proud to present the new 3.38 release. This version increases performance and stability, as well as a host of new features for security, convenience, and fun. GNOME has a few revised app icons to add to the mix, as well as other design improvements, adding battery percentage to the indicator and restart to the power off options. We've added a new welcome tour, which appears after install to help new users feel right at home. Application launchers can now be rearranged and organized and moved in the grid to reflect what's important to you. This allows you to make the app grid your own, as well as making it easier to find apps when you need them. With the newly designed fingerprint dialog, setup is a breeze. You can now log into GNOME with just a simple touch. We've also added parental control settings, giving you more control over what your child can access. Sharing your computer's Wi-Fi is easier than ever with the addition of a scannable QR code to connect your mobile devices. GNOME response time is now faster while using monitors with different refresh rates. You now have even more control over your browsing experience in GNOME Web with intelligent tracking prevention, video and audio blocking options, browser tab mute and unmute, and you can now import passwords and bookmarks from Chromium. The GNOME Maps app is now resizable, adjusting seamlessly to fit the smaller screens of mobile devices. There's certainly a lot to enjoy in GNOME 3.38. We hope you enjoy using it as much as we enjoy making it.
you just confirm that you can see my screen? It's turning into presentation mode now.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, perfect. So let me give you some idea why do I even make this call, this presentation. I was not really sure about it, but I feel like it makes sense. This is more like gathering of ideas, and I would like to hear also your input. And it's something that I've discussed like with friends, like what do they see as, like new opportunities. Even when I was talking to my boss like maybe a year ago about like what could be done with Leap, and like where I feel like maybe the true power is not really used, or I don't see it, or I don't get the feedback from users. I feel like this is the right way to take. So this is also why I would like to talk about this topic a little bit more often. And you could call it, I didn't want to call them partners like for Leap. That sounds like a little bit like SUSE partners. Like, for us, it's community, right? So, and then community can be also represented by companies behind, like Data with Neil, for example, and so on. So this is what I mean by companies. In this scope. Hello, Neil. And so why should be the next version of Leap interesting for them? Like what could they get, and they don't get like with the current release, which is 15.2. So you've probably already heard about me. So I'm Luboš Kocman. Yeah, the surname is tricky in German and English. So yeah, it's Kocman. I'm release manager for OpenSUSE Leap since 1st of 1st this year, and I used to work on RHEL before, and like on high school, I was really interested in open stories, where I was leading the local user group. So the agenda, I told you about closing the Leap gap on the previous slide. Here, I will just repeat it in case that you haven't seen the previous presentation. It's just one slide here, and then I will talk about the opportunities. It's like 6 slides and then discussion. Okay, so closing the Leap gap. So as spoken before, for those who didn't hear it, it's an effort driven by SUSE to bring SLE and Leap closer together. And by closer, we mean actually that we will base Leap on SLE binaries. So this was the outcome of the research and the Jump prototype that we came up with. So right now we have a distribution which you can already download. It's called OpenSUSE Jump, and it's basically a concept or implementation of the concept that should be enrolled in OpenSUSE Leap in future versions, like either 15.2.1 or 15.3. If you watch the previous slides, we will know next Tuesday where we have go no go for whether we make the 15.2.1 release or not. And I would like to talk a little bit about like what opportunities do we get with the new concept. And like we will have unified code streams, we will have the exactly same binaries on both distributions when it comes to 4,000 packages which are actually shipped in SUSE Linux Enterprise. I'm not talking RPMs, I'm talking about like let's call it SRPMs, maybe that's better. The concept of building the distribution, we will get S390, which I was already contacted by one company that's kind of really fitting their workflow for testing applications. That they start on Leap, then they actually test some, let's say, do some smoke testing, then they actually migrate to SLE, and they finish some more testing. And because the smoke testing happens a little bit more often, they actually want to remove the burden of registration, which doesn't happen on the Leap side. And since the binaries will be identical for their scope, it's enough, because they have applications that don't need anything that wouldn't be in SLE. Like they can really use it, and for them it's kind of really beneficial. And when they heard that it's coming, S390 is coming, they were really surprised, because then they can have the same workflow for everything. So this is a big plus that I see. And the tools that will be available to community members will be also available to these companies, right? So when Neil has access to Jira, SUSE.com, and he can raise features, that means that Dato can technically raise features, right? And I feel like this is the investment into Leap can actually really pay off for these companies. And yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more on the next slide, so I will not spoil it. So the first that I can see is the identical development platform. And like I would say that you have a lot of people and companies that may be on budget and just paying for like SLE licenses for everybody may not be like a good option for them. Like you have a lot of companies that can afford it, but also a lot that can't. And